That's you live, thanks.
Thank you. Good morning, members, and welcome to this meeting of Social Work Services Committee on Thursday, 19th of August 2021. This meeting is being recorded, and the recording will be made available on the Council website for public listening. Could I remind members to follow the good practice guidance, which includes muting microphones when switching off the video and switching off the video when you're not addressing the meeting, and for those in the chamber, just mute. Should you wish to contribute to any item, you should write speak in the Teams chat function or indicate to the clerk, and you'll be invited to speak in order about new issues. If your question's been raised by a previous speaker, please withdraw your request so we can deal with the business as efficiently as possible. If you need to leave the meeting for any reason, can I remind you to either type leave in the Teams chat function for the period of time that you're away, and then write join if you're coming back in. First up is the Sedran and apologies and my approval of members' remote participation. Claire, can you provide the Sedran and apologies for today, and who's participating remotely, please?
Thank you, Chair. We've currently got 4 members, including yourself, present in the chamber. So as well as yourself, we've got the Vice Chair, Councillor Charteris and Councillor Ferguson. We have currently 10 members present on Teams. We've got apologies from Councillors Bell and Councillor Karen Crothers. Councillors currently not present are Councillors Giusti, McClelland, Sloan, Tate and Wood, although members are joining Teams as we speak. Councillor Tate's just joined the meeting.
Okay, thank you, Claire. I can confirm agreement to the participation of those members named as participating remotely, and that takes us on to item 2, declarations of interest. Do any members have any declarations of interest they wish to make? Okay, I can't see any hands raised or any indications, so that takes us on to the minute of the previous meeting of 24th of March, minute of the previous meeting. Are we happy to approve the minutes?
Agreed.
Okay, thank you. And that takes us on to item 4, which is the Social Work Services Revenue Budget Monitoring Report for the period ended 31st of March 2021. This is obviously a historical report, but we have the Chief Social Work Officer here who may be able to give us some indication of what's been happening in the interim period up to now, because obviously it's a situation that's in a great deal of flux, let's say, but the report in front of us is for the period up to March 2021. I can invite the officer present to speak to this. I'm not sure if we have her on the screen at the moment.
We have Janet on the screen, Chair.
Oh, yes, sorry, I see you there just at the bottom of my screen. Is there anything you'd like to add to the report before I open it up to members' questions?
Thank you, Chair. I just make a point of clarity. Section 3.1 states that the residential placements has reduced from the previously reported figure. That is the figure at Q3. We were still over budget on residential placements, so that reacted overspend had reduced from the Q3 position.
Thank you. So that should help clarify why that figure's there. Could I now invite members if they have any questions or comments on the report? I've got Councillor Jane Maitland.
Hello, Chair. Thank you. It's just really to say this is not a sad news story, which very often social work services has been long ago in the past. And so, particularly during this time, I congratulate everyone for coming in so very well on budget. Chairman, the other thing is that we're struggling slightly, those of us remotely. We can't see you or the chamber. I don't know whether that's actually something that somebody could arrange.
Thanks, Councillor Maitland. Obviously, I think our team should be commended for keeping within budget in difficult times. I'm flattered that you you wish to see me on the screen, but I'm not sure if that's a technical... I think I'm getting advice from the technical team that they're just working through that now, so things should start displaying appropriately, hopefully on your screens. If I could maybe just invite the Chief Social Work Officer. Obviously, that's our budget's sort of under control up to the end of March 2021, but obviously it might be helpful for members to hear from Lillian in terms of where we're at now.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Councillor Maitland. I'll make sure that's passed on to the team. Do appreciate that. So we certainly are currently facing a challenging budget situation. We are still clearly, as members are aware, in the depths of response and recovery from the COVID pandemic. It's difficult for me at this moment in time to give members an exact figure because we're still realigning some of the COVID funding and we're still looking at some of those issues that arose during COVID that have remained ongoing, particularly around, we had 4 youngsters who we ended up having to accommodate into agency placements, and a couple of those are at significant cost, but we are working to bring those young folks back into the region, and I would hope that that will assist to address some of the significant challenges that we've got within our budget just now. We are projecting an overspend moving forward. However, we are working hard to make sure that we bring that budget back in line, as we always, that is always our starting point from social work, and we're working hard towards that. At this moment in time, as I say, we are still receiving some COVID funding through various lines that come into social work, so consequently it's quite challenging to always fully reflect at the end of Q1 where we're currently at. So I would be able at the next committee chair to give a more detailed view on where we're at, but we're certainly realigning and reconfiguring some of the funding that's already within our allocated budget, and working towards making sure that we use that resource to a balanced situation. However, I do have to advise members that we are still dealing with a significant demand for services. Our children's and adult services are well over 40% increase in demand for referrals alone over the last year. So we are still facing a real demanding and challenging situation, which we're working hard to make sure that we manage as best as we can within the allocated resource. But there is no question that the impact of COVID in terms of the protection agenda for children and adults is yet to be fully recognised, and we absolutely know there's a lot of hidden harm in our communities, and some of that is currently coming to the fore. But happy to take questions, and I will come back, Chair, with a more detailed report moving forward. Thank you.
That's very helpful, Lillian, so thank you for that. I don't know if that's encouraged any further questions from members in the meantime. I'll just give a few seconds for the chat function. No, okay. Well, we'll look forward, obviously, to future reports that'll help us better understand the full impact and what we're having to deal with. With that, are we happy to go to the recommendations in note 2.1 and 2.2?
Noted.
Okay, thank you. That takes us on to item 5, which is the Transformation Programme Early and Effective Intervention Family Support Work. So we're being really asked to look at the progress of the Social Work Services Transformation Change Programme, which we'd agreed to support some meetings ago. And we have Sarah here to speak to the report. I don't know if you want to add anything to it at the moment, Sarah, before opening it up for questions.
Just maybe to clarify some of the data. So where we had said about the numbers of children that we're working with and the number of families that we're working with, it seems like there's not so many families with the number of children, but the fact is that some of the families we're working with are large families. We've got several families where there's 7 children and a number where there's 5 children. And we count a family as a whole family, even if that family is divided into 2 separate parents that live separately with some of the children each. We count them as a whole family, so that maybe looks like the figures are distorted a little, but we will, the next report that we give will give an appendix with all of the data about the geography, the numbers of referrals, the ages of children and all of that. So that will enable people to see in a little bit more detail who we're working with, where they are, and give a better understanding, if that's helpful.
Thanks, Sarah. Yeah, no, that helps clarify that. And obviously this is the first of, well, what will be quarterly reports just on the update of how this is progressing. Obviously there's a lot of good work being started in difficult times, which is obviously stretched capacity. I'm just wondering if members have any comments or questions on the report in front of them today. I can see Councillor John Campbell.
Thanks, Chair. Thanks, Sarah. Yeah, that was one of the points I was going to pick up, was the number of referrals to 72 families, but I'm pleased that you've actually explained that. I think this is quite a good news story. It seems to be working pretty well. And when you look at some of the case studies on page 19, it's you know, it's quite pleasing to see that we're helping these people at such an early stage. So thank you, and thanks to all the teams that have been involved. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you.
Thanks, John, and I'm sure we'll be able to pass that on to the teams to bolster them in these difficult times. Are there any other questions from members? So I'm not seeing anything coming up in the chat function. Oh no, I beg your pardon, Councillor Maitland.
Thanks very much. I suppose really I'm wanting to ask about, Sarah, how we're going to measure outcomes from this amount of resource that is being placed with the families. I think it's absolutely the right thing to do. But, you know, in terms of watching the public pound, it's really important to be able to say we're having this impact and families are definitely moving forward. I would be grateful to have some idea about how we might take that particular thing forward, because if you look at the minutes of the papers in the rear of this set of papers, it's very obvious that officers think that people who have died of drugs overdose deaths are families that have been known to us for years. And you know, this sort of level of input that we want to put in now, we hope very much might result in fewer deaths long time down the way. But I would be grateful to have some idea about how you think that the next reports might begin to start to tell us what impact this resource will be having.
Okay, so one of the things that we've done this time, when we had funding previously that we were working with families, and we've built on that, we've divided up our allocations between the families that we hold just by the family support service. So that would mean those referrals would come into our duty service and would be then the family would agree to a family support referral, and those families then don't have another social worker involved. It's just worked with by family support. So those give us quite a good measure, and at least half of the families we work with, that's how it's managed. So that means that we are able to then work with that family until we've achieved the help they needed, and we can either get them support within the community, within their extended network, schools, everything else, and there's no longer a need for further social work input. So we'll be able to measure those. The other families we work with are ones where there is an allocated social worker, and those we might be measuring. We can measure whether we can avoid them becoming having a legal status, being referred to the children's reporter, or whether they come back to live with family, to live from maybe being in a foster placement and the return to families, and we support the families to manage as the children return, or we help them again not to have long-term social work involvement. So we'll be able to start to see those and the impact of those pieces of work now that we've been involved with families for a period of time. We're also doing evaluations with families. We started doing those for the ones that we started working with when the team began in December. So we're starting to get feedback with families, which helps us to know what helps them and if we need to make any changes to the things that we're doing. And we're also looking at what other supports we might be able to help families with where they've had long-term difficulties, where there's been involvement with social work over many years with different generations, and what might make a difference to those families to help the improvements that they've made, or the things that have got better, that we can keep that going for the longer term, and how that might be without having continuous direct social work involvement, if that makes any sense. But I'll be able to, as we explore different things and look at those different things, we'll be able to feed back at subsequent meetings, and I'll be able to bring more data, as I said, to the next meeting, plus the outcome of the initial evaluations that we're doing.
Thanks, Sarah. Councillor Maitland, does that help address your questions?
Chairman, and thank you for letting me to come back. So success as far as this particular tranche of money is concerned will be that social work is really not required any further. I mean, that's pretty clear. Is that for these children? Is that what you're thinking of?
For the majority, that would be that we need to look at what are their long-term supports. Do they have enough supports within their family and community? But generally, we're building up a relationship with them and helping them to develop their support networks so that those people will pick up when things are slipping back for that family. If it's somebody with mental health challenges and at periods of time their motivation's not good, the standard of their house maybe starts to slip back, that family members will pick that up, or friends will pick that up. That will help to get things going rather than need another referral to social work. So it's those kind of things that we're doing to help make sure that the changes that we make are sustained for the longer term.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thanks, Sarah. Now, I didn't know if, I think maybe invite Lillian to come in first before I take Councillor Ferguson.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, Councillor Maitland, I'd also wish to advise that one of the ways that we will be able to measure the success of the early intervention will be doing a very close review of our child protection and children that end up on the register, because in the past, children have ended up in the register, and actually had we got in at an earlier stage, we would have been able to have a much more robust care package. So that will be another avenue in which we will look to do some evaluation. And then 2 final points. You're right about if you look at the drug-related death report, it is third, fourth generation of folks that have worked with social work over various elements and various times in their life. So what we want to do is break that cycle at the earliest opportunity, and that will certainly be another way that we can look at our longer term interventions, and that could include at the moment, it can be an escalation to have an external agency placement for a child, whereas we believe at the moment if we can get in early, as Sarah's described, that wraparound support, then that will, as time moves on, have a positive impact on us having to look for placements outside the region. So difficult to have an exact science, as social work always is, but we're confident that if we can get in and work with the numbers that's reflected in this report, we will see the longer term benefit. Thank you.
Thanks, Lillian. Councillor Ferguson.
Thanks, Chair. Lillian and Caroline, I'm wondering here if you could maybe just let the members know just what the size of this team is and what they make up, because I don't know what to guess, that there's X number of social workers, X number of social work assistants, for example, family workers. I think it would be really helpful for us to get some sort of tree so we really understand. And just on the back of that, I don't know what other members are like, but I've had increasing numbers of referrals coming in through me and back onto yourself and others in your team. So the increase has been huge. We get that. And if what's been happening with me is replicated across other councillors, obviously it's a different route coming into you than normal. And I'm just wondering if you're what's the best way to cope with that, because it's too easy sometimes just to send an email just to a senior officer rather than going through EMES, and EMES takes too long, to be honest. So I'm wondering if there's a wee bit of advice on that.
Thanks, Councillor Ferguson. If I take the second part first, and then I'd ask Sarah to give the makeup of the team, if that would be helpful. So you're absolutely correct. We've had a huge increase in demand, as I said, for children and adult services, but children's services in particular, and with lots of families that we've never had any previous contact with. Obviously, we would encourage the use of the EMES system, because then we know that we can get back to members, and the worry always is that something does get lost in the system and doesn't respond to. However, you know, we will always try and answer a question that members pose to us from their citizens. At the moment, some of the challenges is absolutely around an expectation from some of our children, from their families, and what we can and what we can't do. So part of having to work with families that have never been involved with the local authority before is they have an unrealistic expectation of the services that are available. And what we're trying to do is be much more robust in our front door access to service and our screening, to make sure that those cases are passed to the appropriate team and dealt with as quickly as we possibly can. However, you're absolutely correct. We have a significant increase, and we are dealing with a real demand just now that we've probably never had to deal with. I would say, however, that normally July and August is particularly challenging for us because the schools are not on. But this year, because of the real robust summer programme that was put in place, that hasn't been as significant as others. So I am hoping that we will start to stabilise over the coming months, and that we will be able to deal with the demand. But there is undoubtedly a demand beyond anything that we could have anticipated. But we are certainly looking to plan and deliver services in a different way. And I would ask members to bear with us, and we will get back with a response as quickly as possible. And we always try to do that within the time. Thank you, Councillor Ferguson.
Okay, thanks, Lillian. And just, I know elected members will get a briefing, and I think it did show a slight drop in the number of referrals. Although they were high, it was like less than the previous period. So maybe that's some kind of encouraging signs there. I said it was just on the other point about the team structure.
Okay, and next time, as well as the data, I'll do a structure for you with the names and who's working in the team. So we have 13 family support workers in the team. They're roughly 7 east and 6 west, but they very much work across. It depends on the needs of a family. Sometimes there's 2 workers allocated depending on how intense the support needed and who's the best match, because we recruited really experienced staff from a range of different backgrounds. So sometimes we like to match the right person to the right family. So we have 1 senior social worker at the moment. Her post came from our existing children families senior post and didn't come from the funding for this team. However, we've just recruited to a 2nd senior social worker, which has come from the funding, and that's an 18 months post, because we feel that it was a lot for one person to supervise all of the staff, do the allocations, discuss the cases, and also the development of the team and development of the service, so that we have really good links to community resources, and we have good links with the team, so that we can really improve on our reporting of information and on our outcomes as well. So those two seniors will work closely together and with the other teams, and we won't be having an East-West team. We're working really well as a team all together. So we will, those seniors will both work right across the whole team. Does that answer that okay?
Thanks, Sarah. I think I can see a nodding head, which is encouraging. I think one of the points I was going to just touch on was obviously it's not always easy to recruit and retain social work officers, so that's obviously good news. Is there potential to maybe retain beyond the scope of the funding? Because obviously it's like hen's teeth, isn't it, sometimes, so especially across Scotland. So is that something we can certainly encourage people to somehow stay with our team and increase our sort of resilience?
We're hoping.
So Sarah, you go first.
We are hoping. I mean, the people that have come to this team are very committed to the role that we're doing, and part of the work that we want to evidence is that the role that they perform is a really useful one. It's a really useful stage, that early part of social work where we're picking up where there is that real need for some support. But if that support is put in there, then families don't progress through and concerns increase. So we do think that's really important. I think the staff that we've got are really enjoying their roles and are working really hard, and I think would want to stay within our service if that's possible.
Just to add to that, Chair, I mean, we always are looking to reconfigure and change the way that we deliver services, and obviously as vacancies come up through whatever method, and we do currently carry some social work vacancies, and we don't get application that will fill those, then of course we would be looking to encourage those staff towards the end of the project. We don't want to lose them from the project as it stands just now, but how we will continue to deliver will be part of the exit strategy as we move forward, and we will look to reconfigure services moving ahead to make sure we meet and we learn from this project, because the learning is significant already. Thank you.
Thanks, Lillian. I can see Councillor Ferguson's got a sort of glint in his eye, so I'll just let him in again.
Thanks very much to you for the explanation. It's been very helpful. And I think what I'm getting at is, because I know our Grow Our Own social worker programme is very good, and we've got people in that team who are not at social worker level who've shown ability. I'm assuming then that we'll be encouraging them to go into the Grow Your Own if we possibly can, and I appreciate those places will be limited because I suppose budget constraints really, or capacity constraints. So it's just a sort of assurance that anybody in that team who's shown the ability to act at a higher level is able to do so.
Yeah, happy to answer that, Councillor Ferguson. I mean, clearly with the additional resource that we were provided to increase the Grow Your Own, then that opportunity is open, certainly to the team and to all members of staff that we believe has got the capability to go and do that. So absolutely, thank you.
Thank you, and thanks for the reminder that we did actually agree, managed after a sort of complex process of committees and agreements, but we have actually secured the funding to support that in the next coming years. With that, I can't see any other comments in the chat, so are we happy then, on the basis that we're expecting to see additional detail in the next quarterly reports, including details on families and children, obviously observing the appropriate sensitivities, details on the outcomes and how we provide that wraparound support but allow social work services to sort of retreat and sort of go to the next priority, if you like, and also how we deal with the child protection referrals, etc., and the learning points. So I suppose there's a lot to include in the next reports, but obviously we'll be able to tweak those as we go. So on that basis, are we happy to note the progress and that the reports will be brought back to this committee on a quarterly basis?
Noted.
Okay. Thank you. Thanks very much, Sarah. Our next item is the Appropriate Adult Scheme, and it's a report by a Chief Social Work Officer, and this is to do with the implementation of the Appropriate Adult Steering Group, as outlined in the report. Over to you, Lillian.
Okay, thank you, Chair. I'm hoping that Caroline Rollison, who is our manager or officer that leads on this report, is also on the call. So we're required clearly to provide members with an update on our scheme, and I don't have anything to add and would ask if members have any comment for either myself or Caroline. Thank you.
Over to you, Caroline. Is there anything you'd like to add?
No, I don't have anything additional, thank you.
Any elected members want to make any comment on this report? Councillor McKee.
I'd like to just clarity on what the appropriate adult scheme is, please.
Okay, the appropriate adult scheme is a scheme that the council will support the police with interviewing vulnerable adults. So those who have some type of disability with regard to their mental health or learning disability, where they may have an issue with communication and understanding, we provide a service to that person through the police for interviews, and whether that's as a witness, as a victim, or as an accused person.
Thank you.
Does that clarify?
Can I also clarify, Councillor McKee, that we have to have that service available 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. Thank you.
Thanks for that. I can't see any questions in the chat, and obviously just on that last point, Lillian, that is something within the report where we're obviously looking to secure resources to support the very fact that we'll have to respond to any demand on that basis.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I mean, it is an ongoing resource demand. We do receive funding from Scottish Government, which doesn't fully cover the cost to the local authority, but without a shadow of a doubt, depending on the amount of calls and the amount of requests from Police Scotland, then it can be quite a challenging demand to meet. But we absolutely to date have made sure that we've always been available as required. Thank you.
Thanks, Lillian. So no questions have come up in the Teams function, and I think we've got a bit of additional information there. So on that basis, can we go to the recommendations and note the implementation of the steering group as outlined in paragraph 3.1, the national developments as outlined in paragraph 3.2, and an update on resource implications following the implementation of the statutory service as outlined in paragraph 3.3.
Noted.
Okay, thank you, and thanks, Caroline, for your input. Thank you. That takes us on to item 7, which is the Dumfries and Galloway Integration Joint Board Draft Strategic Commissioning Plan 2022 to 25. So I will hand over now to, I'm not sure actually.
Chair, if I could just come in, it should be Viv Gratian and Liz Forsyth should be both on the call. Okay. But clearly I can take any questions, but I believe they're both available. Yeah.
Oh, yes, here we are. I'd seen you appear, Viv, and then you disappeared again, so I didn't know if you'd thought it was a self-explanatory report. So is there anything you'd like to add to the report in the meantime before we open it up to members?
It's just a very short report, Chair, that's just advising of the work and development of the Health and Social Care Strategic Commissioning Plan is progressing. We've had a reasonable amount of engagement, and there's a number of ways that people can engage with us, and the consultation period is open till 29th of August. So, no, very happy at that and happy to take any questions.
Thank you. So, yeah, just on the engagement period, so that's another 10 days basically, and I did notice in Appendix 2 there was links to a sort of a smart survey and one of these funny codes that you can scan. So we're very, very literate digitally in this council, so I'm sure all the members will be scanning that immediately and completing the survey for those who haven't. But is there anything? Is that the best place to go? Just follow the links in Appendix 2, and if we haven't contributed already yet.
Absolutely, Chair, although there has also been in all of the information that we've been circulating, if people prefer not to use this survey and give us a bit more of a narrative, they can email us, they can telephone us, whatever. We've tried to be as flexible as we can for people, and people have been contacting us in a range of ways. So that's certainly the easiest for us, but maybe not the easiest for others, and we're happy to hear from folks in a range of different ways. So there's a lot of information or different routes to engage with us.
Thank you very much, Viv. And I see Councillor Maitland's either doing something questionable or wants to make a comment on our digital engagement. I don't know if Councillor Maitland, if you want to add something to that.
I'm saying nothing.
No, that's fine. So I suppose I would really just encourage members, if they haven't participated already, to avail themselves of the opportunities to feed back into the process before the 29th of August, and hopefully that'll help strengthen what comes out at the other end. I can't see any other comments though, so with that, are we happy to... Oh, sorry. Right, with that then, are we happy to note the progress on developing the next Integration Joint Board Strategic Commissioning Plan?
Noted.
Okay, noted. Thank you very much. Thanks, Viv. That takes us on to item 8, which is the Integration Joint Board Performance Management Framework. And again, this is a process. Viv, I take it you're speaking to this one as well. Is that right?
It should be Ananda, Chair.
Oh, I beg your pardon. So is there anything you'd like to add to this report?
I'm not sure, Chair, if Ananda has joined us. I'm just, I can't see the guest list. Ananda Allen.
Okay, just for the benefit of members, we're just awaiting to see if Ananda Allen is participating in the teams to speak to this report. Doesn't appear to be in the list at the moment.
And I can certainly come in, and I'm sure Viv could answer any questions while we wait for Ananda. I would say to members that this framework runs alongside the strategic plan, so the timeline is very similar. However, happy to take any questions, and if we can't answer them, we'll certainly get that information back to members. I'm not sure what's happened to Ananda. She certainly had joined earlier. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Lillian. I mean, obviously, what we've really been asked to do within the report is obviously to look at the timeline, and we've also got to consider how best we're going to engage as elected members, either through a drop-in session or a workshop, and how that's going to best fit into the timeline so we can make sure we're fed in correctly. I can see a couple of people wanting to come in here, so I think I can see Councillor John Campbell. I beg your pardon, if you...
It was...
Yeah, sorry, I think I saw Jane Maitland actually came up first, John, so if you just want to wait a wee second and allow...
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Jane, on you go.
Thank you very much. Thank you, John, too. What I just wanted to ask about was the timescale, because it's quite sharp. You know, August is upon us, Ananda, and I just wondered about the timings and the dates, because the diary is pretty chock-a-block. So that's the first question. And the other one was really actually slightly to do with the previous report, but also this one too, which is that the strategic commissioning plan is incredibly important. It really is going to shape what services a health and social care partnership delivers, and it's really important for all members kind of to twig that they really must input into this if they want to shape what's happening on their local patch. So with those question and remark, I'll leave it.
Okay, thanks, Jane, and thanks, Ananda, for joining us just in time. So speaking of timing, you're just able to hear the whole question there by Councillor Maitland. So is there something you can help Councillor Maitland with?
Yes, thanks very much, Chair. Unfortunately, there's been a bit of slippage on the project, so the engagement is going to be extended through into October so that we can ensure that everyone has a a good opportunity to have an opportunity to influence this. So obviously the performance management framework is very much about the governance and making sure that we can set out very, very clearly how the governance of how we're going to monitor the delivery of the strategic commissioning plan is going to work. So we will be, the dates haven't been set up yet, but we will make sure that you have access to all the appropriate links to come and give us your comments. And there's a first draft. Obviously, we'll be also responding to the comments that we have from the strategic commissioning plan in relation to how are we going to measure and demonstrate that we've delivered this. So in the round, the timeframe ultimately has to be in line with the strategic commissioning plan, that it has to be published by the end of this financial year so that the whole piece can go forward for the new period of relevance. But we will be extending those engagement periods to ensure everyone's got an opportunity.
Thanks, Ananda. Jane, does that answer your question?
Yep, thank you.
Thank you. And I've got now Councillor John Campbell to speak as well.
Yeah, thanks. I think my question's probably already been answered. I was looking at the workshop for the Social Work Committee, which says August. I don't know if I just missed the Teams link or anything like that, but just picking up on Councillor Maitland's point, yeah, it is pretty tight, but I'm glad that it's been extended. So thanks very much for that. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you. Now, just on that, because obviously we need to kind of determine, or at least get to a point where we know how we're going to actually contribute, either via workshop or drop-in. So it does have in the timetable there on page 30, the August 21 Social Work Committee. Obviously that's here now, but in terms of us being able to have a forum to sort of participate and chip in, how do we envisage that's going to happen in terms of the deadline for October? So will that be an invite sent out by yourself, for example, or and can it be extended, for example, if other elected members not on the Social Work Services Committee want to participate? I'll ask that first, but I do see Lillian's wanting to come in as well as Councillor Ferguson. So are you able to address that first, Ananda?
Yes, I mean, I would envisage, because of the very busyness for members' workshops and seminars, that we might not be able to get a seminar into the schedule. I have spoken to the person who runs the corporate diary about whether or not we would be able to do that. I think drop-in sessions might be the most accessible way of doing it, and I would be absolutely open to all elected members coming and giving their views on the performance management framework. So I'm more than happy to extend that invitation, and we'll work with your corporate support to make sure that happens.
Thank you. I'll allow Lillian in first and then Councillor Ferguson.
Thank you, Chair. It was on that point, just if members felt it might be a way forward. We also have a committee on the 6th of October, which we could have a seminar either before or after, if members felt that was an appropriate way. So it's just another option. And Anda's correct, we've struggled to find a time, but that would need to, members would need to agree and consider that. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Lillian. No, that's helpful just to see what's already in the diary and how we can maybe coordinate that to maximise the access. Councillor Ferguson.
Thanks. It was kind of, I think you thought I was going to come and ask a question earlier. Ananda or Viv, the timetable for the commissioning plan is dependent on this work because they'd have to go forward hand in hand. They're crucial to each other, I'm right? So if we're putting back the timescale for the framework, then is the timetable for the plan being tweaked slightly so that there's a bit more time in there? That's one part. And the second part is there not an opportunity here to have some joint sessions so that anybody can enter, you know, so we can do, especially if we're doing it via Teams, we could be coming in from either Social Work Committee or the councillors themselves, Health Board, IGB, because we should all be really involved in the putting this together, shouldn't we?
So I don't know which one of you wants to pick that up. Viv, I can see your hand up, so lucky you. On you go.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor. for the question. I think there's even with where we are just now, looking at getting the strategic commissioning plan together for end of March. I think it's quite a tight timescale for us, given the amount of work that has to do. So we weren't planning on extending the consultation period around the strategic commissioning plan for that, because there's obviously still quite a lot that we have to do after that. I think what we have done, and Ananda mentioned it briefly there, Andy, was that we've got lots of comments throughout the consultation and engagement that we've had around the plan that are relevant to the performance framework. So even though it hasn't been formally as a kind of joint piece, it's been questions that have been raised, and we've certainly, in the comments that we've been reviewing so far, pulling those together, and we'll be sharing that with Ananda through that. So I think that for both pieces of work, there's a lot that has to happen after the consultation, and I guess by extending Ananda's part, we're shortening the bit that the officers have got in terms to do that from there. But we really recognise the importance of making sure that people have that opportunity. And I'm certain if there are discussions or comments that come up during Ananda's engagement period, we will of course pull that into the editing of the strategic commissioning plan. So although we're not planning on extending those periods, we very much, as you know, Ananda and I work very closely together, so there's a lot of kind of crossover between us, and we will ensure that that's all captured there.
Okay, thanks, Viv. Okay, so I can't see any other questions in the chat, and I think we've kind of covered the points we wanted to there. Obviously, I think I should add, sorry, I've got a calmly presented note, which is actually just for the comfort of members, that all members are now invited to all seminars and workshops routinely, because I think it has been an issue in the past where some members maybe felt a wee bit excluded, where they had an area of interest, but just because they weren't on a particular committee, wouldn't have been a natural first invitee, as it were. So that's good, and that's how we've moved into the 21st century as a council, to be more inclusive, so that's good as well. But just on the actual report in front of us, obviously we're being asked to note the anticipated timeline, and I think that's fair. There's a bit of flex in that, given the circumstances and the fact that you're both working together. But also the workshop, I think it's looking more like it'll be a drop-in session, and that'll be between yourselves and our corporate team to get a suitable time to arrange that. Obviously, bearing in mind we've got the next social work social work committee on the 6th of October. So whether or not that's kind of coordinated with that, or you know, prior to that or whatever, then obviously we can try and fit that in and open it up to all members. So is that, well, firstly, is that okay with yourselves as speakers to the report, and also then we'll go to members? I see thumbs up there, that's good. And just for the members of the committee, are we happy to go along on that basis?
Great.
Yep. Okay, thanks very much. Thank you both. That takes us on to the next item, the final item, which is to note the minutes of the Public Protection Committee of the meeting on 27th of April. Just a wee point on this, obviously there's a meeting coming up in the Public Protection Committee next week, I think, and there's a new chair in place. I don't know if you maybe want to add a couple of comments about that.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, on Tuesday, and we do have a new independent chair, who is Hamish McGee, who used to previously be the in charge of fire service in Dumfries and Galloway. So Hamish will be our new chair and will chair from Tuesday as the independent chair, replacing Kate Thompson. Thank you.
That's very helpful, Lillian. Thank you. And so members, happy to note the final report there? I think I can.
Noted.
Thank you very much. That's it. Thank you all for your participation today. I have no further business, and the meeting is now concluded. Thank you.